And you have this Pittsburgh synagogue massacre. How can we explain in simple terms how dangerous Donald Trump is? Because he has failed repeatedly to respond to these horrible events with any sense of empathy or human decency.
Well, one of the things is that he is unable to manage anxiety. He cannot help us manage our anxiety, but his pathology leads him to get rid of everything that makes him anxious. So he impulsively encourages violence. He impulsively is divisive. He impulsively externalizes his own fear of his inner chaos, which he's had to struggle against ever since he was 2 years old. Now, one of the things that a president does, however, unconsciously for all of us, is they function as a lawgiver and a father figure. As a psychoanalyst, we say or a mother figure if it's a woman, we haven't had that yet. But unconsciously, what I say is they function as a super ego figure. In other words, they set the tone for behavior, for morality, for right and wrong, for all of those kinds of things. Sort of like, they're not quite as important as Moses, but the idea of the Ten Commandments about rules. And so what Trump has done is he's given superego permission to become violent, and he has sanctioned it. And I think that's what's so disturbing, because he's like a person who has road rage, but he has the bully pulpit, and he expresses it in front of everyone. And so when you're the president, you carry with that job a kind of authority that allows you to express the road rage, and then it has a deep impact on so many people. So if anybody's at all unstable, or anybody's at all, and a lot of people are angry about things, and some of it even is very justifiable. But what happens is he's giving permission to express it. So that's why it's happening now. I think that it happens and comes and goes in waves. It made worse because Trump is more anxious in the last 2 weeks about what's going to happen in the primaries. I think he's very anxious that he might get, the Republicans might get defeated in the primaries. And I think that anxiety has translated into even greater externalization of his aggression. And so he essentially stimulates more and more attacks because he has to get rid of his fears of being attacked. So he essentially externalized it. And it's very troublesome. It's definitely increased because of the election. But what I want to say is not about getting reelected. Everybody sees it as some kind of Machiavellian ploy to scare people about immigrants and this and that. Part of it. But the main thing is to manage his own anxiety, and he's got to get rid of it. Unfortunately for us, when he does that, he functions like a father figure who says, okay, kids, you're on your own. You can do whatever you want.
Well, I made this observation and folks got upset at me, and I'll stand by it, and you tell me if I'm wrong. I think this man is beyond, he's created a permissive environment. He's basically giving these people instructions. The way I'm writing about him, he's the Charlie Manson of American politics right now. Charlie Manson didn't kill anybody, but he created a cult and he gave these people encouragement and said it was okay. But then he'll say, oh, my hands are clean, I didn't do it. But he's certainly giving them the messages.
I think that that's a perfectly fine analogy. I actually agree with that. It's hard to ever agree with another person 100%, but I really am pretty close to that with you. I think that it's very important to see that he can have clean hands. He can invite other people to express his destructiveness so he doesn't have to carry it out. For what is unconscious is that words for Trump are the equivalent of weapons. He doesn't need a gun. Words are his bullets. And so he enables other people to buy their own guns and fill the barrels with his tweets and just shoot people. It's a very disturbing quality that he has. I agree with you. Manson's not the only person you can use, but it's a pretty dramatic example to get people to pay attention to what you're saying. I do think it makes sense. I had a patient, and this is a psychotic process. I just have to say what it is. So I had a patient who, on the inpatient ward, used to walk down the hall, light a match, and throw it over his shoulder. And it became clear that he wanted to set the ward on fire, but he was going to leave it up to chance in his mind. So if the match landed and went out, it didn't happen. But then, of course, he'd light another one and do the same thing. So it was a way of denying responsibility psychologically for him, while he was setting the ward on fire, but never could claim that it was him because it was chance. It was whether the wind would blow out the match or not. That is Trump. That is a sign of what's called a thought disorder. It's a sign of a person who actually is unable to think. And it would be much better if Trump could just say, kill the Jews, because at least you would know what he was talking about. It would be much better if he could say whatever horrible thing he needs to say. Instead, he gets other people to do it and then avoids responsibility. And that kind of abdication of thought is what makes him, I think, unfit to be president, because he's not able to do the thinking himself. He wants other people to do the thinking and acting for him. And that is extremely dangerous in a president. It's bad enough for anybody, but to have a president like that is very dangerous. So I think that you're right on the mark here. And one of the things that happens when a person as a child is untreated and has hyperactive tendencies, there's a whole cycle of reverberation and problems. So it limits not only his intellectual development, he also can't listen to other people. He can't think. He doesn't understand what people are saying. It's not like he doesn't agree with it. He doesn't understand. So he therefore has to retreat to name calling and making fun of, or going to his base to whip up frenzy of activity. But it's because he actually doesn't understand what the complex issues are, because he's never been able to think about them or grapple with them, because it made him too anxious. That's why he always has to say, I have the best words, or I'm the smartest person all the time. I know things other people don't know. Now that opens up